Out Hub, all the things, all the places. Welcome to my online audience, and hello to you radio listeners out there. Show today brought to you by BioTrust. So awesome. Did you guys know that after the age of 20, your body produces about 10% less collagen with each passing decade? The visible result ends up being the appearance of wrinkles, flaky skin, hair loss, and dirty nails as we age, which is why Ageless Multi-Collagen was created. Gives you 5 types of collagen you need from 4 premium sources in one complete protein mix. Powerful support for your body with results you can see and feel in a few short weeks. Get Ageless Multi-Collagen for 51% off plus free shipping by going to the URL in the description box, Health with Beanz. That's healthwithbeanz.com, and support our sponsors. Thank you guys so much for being here. So much to talk about. So the DNC kicked off their convention last night to, I don't know if you can call it excitement. No, you can't. I did a little look on Twitter at what these view counts looked like for the DNC, which is all virtual this year. And it was pretty putrid when I looked at it. I guess it was around 10 o'clock. And maybe there were, I don't know, a few thousand viewers watching. Somebody did another comparison this morning. YouTube DNC live ratings. Listen to this. NBC had 80,000 watching with 50% dislike ratio. ABC had 17,000 watching with 40% dislike ratio. MSNBC had 110,000 watching with 35%. Joe Biden, 23,000. Joe Biden's channel, 23,000 watching with 54% disliking what they were looking at. Now this had 5,000 with a 70% dislike ratio to 68%. PBS had 33,000 with 50% disliking it. And Fox had 99% disliking the DNC convention. And it was crazy. It was weird. Super weird. They had this weird music video at the end. I don't even know what it was supposed to be. It was like some protest song, I guess. It was a very famous song, but they were redoing it. And they were in front of some very strange 80s-like background. Very, very weird. It was, I watched it this morning. I don't know who they're talking to. And then Michelle Obama. We have to talk about Michelle Obama because she was sort of the showcase today, but it was obvious that she had pre-recorded this speech a long time ago. And was apparently much, much too busy to record it again for today. Or yesterday, I'm sorry. So she recorded a very divisive, gross speech that basically said, without saying it, if you don't agree with me, you're racist. And didn't talk about Kamala Harris at all. And just basically sat up there and talked about why Trump was so horrible for the country. And, you know, this is the same Michelle Obama who praised Harvey Weinstein, who had Beyonce held up as a positive role model. And I've got a little bit of an echo, producer. I don't know if that's me or not. Just letting you know. You know, the way that it seems like the Democrats have attempted to try to swing some cultural support their way over the past several years is to be using musicians and actresses and actors and pop stars and stuff like that. And I guess it was like a year ago, I have the thread up to talk to you guys about it. It's Cardi B. And it says here, meet Cardi B. This was, January 21st, 2019, so about a year and a half ago now. And Cardi B interviewed Joe Biden yesterday. Cardi B is a rap star of some kind. I don't know why. It's trash. It's horrible. I don't know if you guys have heard any of this music. I don't know if you can call it music. It's not really music. I don't know what it is. It's horrible. But she interviewed the Vice President Joe Biden, or former Vice President Joe Biden, yesterday. And I don't understand, for all of the things that the legacy media does in trying to tar and feather people who are not exactly in lockstep with their beliefs. They will attack them for who they associate with. They'll attack them for who they talk to. They'll attack them for who follows them or they follow on Twitter. They'll attack. James Woods, actor, formerly liberal actor from Hollywood, shared on his Twitter this morning a video of Cardi B, who was saying some things that I couldn't play even on podcast if I wanted to. They were so vulgar and disgusting. And she just came out with a new song, or whatever you want to call it, in quotes. It's not a song. I don't know what it is. But she just came out with it. I'm speechless. I can't even believe that people are listening to this. It is disgusting. And it's indicative of what's happening to our culture. It's really, really sad. It's really gross. I mean, this is what we'll go through the thread right now about her, because a lot of people don't know who she is. And it's not like I want a lot of people to know who she is that don't already know, but this is important. So Cardi B, she calls herself that as a play off of the rum brand Bacardi. She was a member of the Bloods. She said that she was a gang member since the age of 16. And this was on her Wikipedia source, by the way, our Wikipedia page, which sourced this tweet that I can't read because it has too much profanity in it. But she's basically saying she's been a Blood since she was 16. Then she says she escaped gang life when she was fired from her job at a grocery store, and her manager said she should become a stripper. And she did. And she credits that with saving her from what could have been a more tumultuous life, saying it allowed her to go back to school. She was arrested for violent assaults. 2 of the alleged victims of those assaults were former coworkers at the strip club where she worked, who were fired for making a complaint about her. A quote from Celebrity Buzz, article dated 10/3/2018, says, after ordering the brutal beating of sisters Rachel Watley and Sarah Watley, also known as Batty G and Jade, Cardi was arrested Monday, October 1st, and being charged with reckless endangerment and disorderly conduct. I don't think this has gone away yet. I think it's still ongoing. You can imagine why I am fearful to bring attention to such a role model who endorsed Elizabeth Warren, is loved by Kathy Griffin, and also talked with Bernie Sanders quite a bit. But it's not only her. Lots of politicians were using Cardi B back then as a shining example and connection to the youth. And I shared an Instagram video of her talking about some things that I couldn't ever say. Bernie Sanders hitched his wagon to Cardi B in April. She endorsed him. He hitches his wagon right on there. And then Hawaii Senator Brian Schatz and Connecticut Senator Chris Murphy are debating back and forth on whether or not they should be retweeting her, because she is so vulgar and gross that it just reflects poor. But this is who the Democrats will allow Biden to interview with. He cannot take questions from the press, but he can take questions from Cardi B, who, if you just take a minute on her Instagram, you'll understand. This new video for this new song. So this is the cultural way. This is the way that the Democrats are trying to get the young person's vote, or the cultural vote. I don't know what they're exactly trying to do, but it gets worse. There's a big, huge, long thread about how she skips her hearings. She talks about, it goes through details of all of the violence she's been involved in. It goes through the lyrics of some of her songs, which I can't even read. And a director of rap music videos and R&B music videos and whatever stepped up yesterday and did his own thread on this as well. It is really, really bad. And so when you're talking about role models and how one party is presenting themselves to the world and what's involved in all of that, and that's what you see the man running for president interviewing with, if you're looking at the screen right now, online, you can see all the stuff streaming again on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, CloutHub, DLive, all over the place. But it's bad. It's bad. So this is what Biden is equating himself with, and it's really something. He can't take questions from actual journalists. His speakers at the DNC don't even record their speeches near the DNC release time or convention time, and then when they get there, they realize, oh my gosh, we've just missed a week or two's worth of history in what has become a lightning fast news cycle, but our main keynote focus is too busy to re-record something to address his vice presidential nominee. The view counts on these videos for an all-out online event are completely putrid. And then when you go to YouTube's homepage today, you see Donald Trump ads all over it. The place where most of the Democrats are going to look at this stuff. In addition to also seeing unskippable pre-roll ads on YouTube of President Trump's campaign ads. I think we're getting somewhere here. There's definitely strategy on one side and not strategy on the other. It's something else. So at the RNC, we're going to be seeing a little bit of a different thing. We've got a couple speakers that have been released. Nicholas Sandmann will be speaking. This is the 16-year-old boy whose life was almost summarily destroyed by a legacy media that did not care what his crime was other than wearing a MAGA hat, and attacked him mercilessly, got him doxxed, threatened. People were threatening his life. Celebrities were openly calling for him to be assaulted. The media was reporting on things that absolutely were not true. It was spun as he was some disrespectful young kid who was a racist, and all manner of other things. The video evidence of that came out shortly thereafter, the full video, shows that wasn't the case. He's won 2 successful lawsuits settlements so far in the hundreds of millions of dollars from news organizations who know that if discovery were to come in these lawsuits, it would be quite a problem. So he's settled, which is something. I'm so proud of him, this 16-year-old. He'll really go far. Maybe he's 17 now. But it was a rough time for him, and thankfully he's not stopping. He's got 5 more, I think, or 4 more lawsuits going on. He'll be speaking at the RNC to talk about cancel culture, etc. And then the McCloskeys will be speaking at the RNC as well. The McCloskeys were that couple that were, they're in a private neighborhood, were trespassed against by a violent mob, or a mob that acted violently and ripping down the gate that seals off their neighborhood and trespassing. They came out of their homes with weapons, brandishing weapons. They were scared for their lives. These were people that were marching through their neighborhood to get over to the mayor's house, I believe. And they brought along their bullhorns and their sticks and their whatever else they had with them. And the McCloskeys came out. The McCloskeys ended up getting arrested by a district attorney there who was funded by George Soros, and they didn't break any law. They were arrested, and the castle doctrine in that state is strong. So I mean, I don't even know where that's going to go. It's not only that, but during this whole entire thing with them, I don't know if you guys know this, but his weapon or her weapon was broken. It couldn't fire. So technically, they really couldn't charge her with brandishing a deadly weapon or whatever the charge. I'm not exactly positive what the charge was, but they couldn't charge her with that. They fixed the gun and then charged her with it. And that's documented. So there's a big problem there, but they'll be speaking. So that's good. There were a few other people that were listed. I'm not sure right now, but it seems like, people that can actually speak to real world things that are going on right now around us. I think Chris Christie's one of them. Whatever. I don't know. Whatever. And this is going to sound crazy, but it's going to lead into the rest of the show today, the second half of the show, which is going to be analytics heavy. I hope you guys are ready. I'm going to do it in a very kind of easy to understand way, but it's important stuff. Yesterday evening on Air Force One, President Trump announced that he was going to be pardoning somebody very, very important today. And everybody went nuts. He said it wasn't going to be General Flynn and it wasn't going to be Edward Snowden. And everyone went crazy thinking, oh my gosh, who's it going to be? A lot of people threw out the name Julian Assange. And then today, President Trump pardoned Susan B. Anthony, which, you know what? Why hasn't anybody pardoned Susan B. Anthony yet? Should be the question that we're asking. That I don't understand. Susan B. Anthony was a very important figure in American history. And literally, we're seeing the legacy media now say all manner of things about how she was racist. I don't get it. I really don't. Now they're attacking Susan B. Anthony of all people. It's something else. It really is something else. I don't, how far will they go? How far will they actually go? So it was a good pardon. It wasn't Julian Assange. It wasn't Edward Snowden. It wasn't General Flynn, just like he said. But he never said he was going to pardon Julian Assange. Now, do I think that it would have been interesting if he did? Absolutely. Because there's a lot going on right now with Julian Assange. If you guys are unaware, Julian Assange is the founder of WikiLeaks. And WikiLeaks played a very big role in the 2016 election. Imagine the splody heads if President Trump would have pardoned Julian Assange. Whew. He's waiting to be extradited here to the United States for charges that the U.S. government has placed about espionage and some other things, because it is alleged that he instructed and assisted with Chelsea Manning hacking the U.S. government military to get the information that they that Chelsea was provided to Julian Assange. And I'll get into that indictment and stuff in another video, or stream or show. But it's super interesting to me because right now there is a lawsuit ongoing between Fox News and the family of slain DNC employee, staffer, whatever you want to call him in terms of his relationship with the DNC, Seth Rich. Seth Rich was murdered in Washington, D.C., and his murder remains a mystery. It's been unsolved. And after his murder, there was a lot of reporting and a lot of people who did a lot of work who said that Seth Rich was responsible for providing the emails to Julian Assange, the DNC emails, to Julian Assange from the DNC, because he was, there are different manner of rumors about why he did it. I won't speculate on why it is that people say that he did this, but this is what they say. And there's been a lot of evidence to back that up. And the Rich family, who hired basically, it's a very long story, but they got crisis counselors from the DNC that helped them with messaging. Donna Brazile, now a Fox News contributor, dedicated portions of her book to Seth Rich and said that she was so afraid after his death that she hid in her office with the shades drawn. And this has been an ongoing thing for several years now, that Seth Rich was actually the one who provided the information to WikiLeaks. WikiLeaks came out and all but basically intimated that it was Seth Rich when they said that they were offering a reward for his killing. And then people questioned it. The host questioned it, and he said, we don't give information about our sources. But everybody has seen quite a lot of evidence that it was Seth Rich that did this, or at least that's what we've speculated. And there's a lawsuit right now. Seth Rich's family, this is very basic. I'm not getting into nitty-gritty details like I could do. We could spend hours on this topic alone. But his family is suing Fox News because Fox News printed a piece that said that somebody in the FBI had come and told him that they had Seth Rich's computer and that they saw that he was communicating with WikiLeaks. And there was a detective involved named Rod Wheeler, who was a former DC homicide detective, who was hired by the family via a gentleman named Ed Butowski, who the family approached for help. So Ed Butowski was helping the Rich family to bring on a private investigator to figure out who had killed their son. But in the midst of his work, the private investigator uncovered that, well, look at this. There was some communication between Seth Rich and WikiLeaks. And not only that, but award-winning journalist, Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Cy Hirsch said the same thing on a tape-recorded call that Ed Butowski recorded. So a lot of people are getting the same information. Fox News published a story. The internet blew up. They were forced to retract the story, even though they probably shouldn't have, because they still stand by it today based on this lawsuit. Sean Hannity was very much involved in the reporting of this. He came out at the time, needed to step back from it as well, saying he respected the family. He was just going to let it go. And there's a lawsuit ongoing right now in court where the Rich family is suing Fox News, Ed Butowski, and a number of other people for defamation, libel. I believe that there's monetary in there for emotional stress and things like that. And it's interesting because Fox News just had the judge allow them to reach out to Julian Assange to testify, to answer questions in this case, because the Rich family is asserting that Fox News made it all up and they're slandering their family and their family name and hurting them and stopping them from being able to grieve and move on. And Fox News is asserting, well, guess who knows the answers to all of these questions? Julian Assange. So a pardon for Assange would have been super interesting yesterday. But it didn't come. It was Susan B. Anthony. And why this all ties into the rest of the stuff we're going to be talking about today is going to blow your minds. But there was a report released this morning by the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence. The Senate Select Committee on Intelligence. I put intelligence in quotes. That, of course, is 960 pages long. References a whole host of issues about Russia. Is basically a cover for everything that we have been living through over the past 4 to 5 years, and is a swamp created document. And I'm going to explain a few of the reasons why. We're going to go through it. But the senators that are on this committee, Vice Chair Warner, Senator Burr is the chair. Marco Rubio, I think, is standing in as the chair right now as Burr goes through some ethics issues he's having. It's really, really, really disgusting. Just because you think you have a body in Congress doesn't mean that the swamp doesn't exist on both sides, and it sure does on this side. In the Republican SSCI, it is bad news. And we're going to hit a break in a second. And when we come back from the break, because we're on radio, guys, WSMN 1590 AM, WSMN 95.3 FM. You're listening here. Love you guys out there on the radio. If we have some time, we'll do some call-in at the end. And you're also streaming on every platform known to man. Periscope, YouTube, CloutHub, DLive, Facebook. UncoverDC with Tracy Beanz. When we come back from the break, I'm going to get into what we're talking about here in regards to the Senate report. Some really interesting tidbits that always need to be pulled back together in a bow. And we'll talk about that right after the break.
This is UncoverDC with Tracy Beanz on WSMN, AM 1590 and FM 95.3.
I was in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean when it happened. There was a sudden jolt and our submarine crashed on the seafloor. We were in total darkness.
That's Dr. Dejana Figueroa, a marine biologist and STEM teacher, talking about a deep sea dive she'll never forget.
It's funny, when I was a kid, I was afraid of the ocean, and there I was, 2 miles below the surface. But as a scientist, you prepare for that. Using our training and a little creativity, we fixed the sub and finished our experiments. The dive was just too important. Every dive gives us glimpses at things few people ever get to see. Glowing creatures, fiery undersea volcanoes. When we got back to the surface, I kissed the ground and called my mom, of course. But you know what? I wouldn't trade that dive for anything.
Dr. Figueroa uses her passion for STEM to discover new things and make the world a better place. She can STEM, so can you. Check out She Can STEM for more stories and inspiration. A message from the Ad Council.
You're listening to Uncover DC with Tracy Beanz.
Hey guys. Here we are, back from the break. That's always a good minute and a half or so to just kind of reground myself for the second half of the show. Thanks again for listening. And I hope I am enlightening you on some information you may not have had before, because it's super important, and a lot of people, it's easy to get lost in the weeds with this stuff. It is all encompassing. Just a real quick little bit of a, I don't know, housekeeping, so to speak. So in case you guys weren't aware, I do a podcast as well, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on every podcasting platform known to man, basically. iHeartRadio, Spotify, TuneIn, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. I have a really packed schedule of guests coming up in the next week or so. But on Thursday, on this radio show right here, we are going to be interviewing Ekim Alptekin. And I don't know if you guys know who he is, but he is the gentleman who brought the Turkey gig to Bijan from Flynn Intel Group. This is the crux of the Farah nonsense. This is the gentleman behind the crux of the Farah nonsense who is facing charges himself. And he'll be joining us on Thursday for an hour. So you'll get to the benefit of his perspective in this whole entire saga with General Flynn and what was going on with Turkey. And it's a really amazing story. I'm super excited to sit with him for an hour. It'll be really, really great. Next week, we have Lee Smith, who has a new book that just came out. And we'll have him on the show as well next Thursday here live. And we'll also have Wednesday, tomorrow, I'll be interviewing on the podcast, the whistleblower, the Facebook whistleblower that went to Project Veritas, Ryan Hartwig. Ryan Hartwig will join us on the Dark to Light podcast tomorrow. And then we also have Ned Ryan coming up next week as well. Super exciting. So we've got a lot of stuff coming for everyone out there. Hoping, we all need to band together right now, get this going, because it's time to get to the nitty gritty. Campaign season's right around the corner. It's time for us to get busy. Speaking of campaign talk, we will get to talking about the Senate Intelligence Committee report thing in a second. Trust me. It's going to be a long one, so we'll buckle in for it. But October 2nd through the 4th in Washington, D.C., it is the Unsilent Majority March on Washington, sponsored by the Walkaway campaign. Helping to plan this event October 2nd through the 4th. Go to walkawaycampaign.com for details. Super, super huge. People have been begging for something to do with themselves. Come get your feet on the pavement. Do the march, do the rally. There's an awesome event with Lara Trump and Judge Jeanine and Diamond and Silk and Shamika Michelle Friday evening at the Sylvan Theater in Washington, D.C. It's going to be really, really cool. And it's time for us to show ourselves. So everybody get your stuff all packed up. Come down to D.C., to our nation's capital. Show everybody our numbers. Do something. And, it'll be great right before the election in October. And then the week after that is AMP, American Priority Conference down in Miami at Trump Doral, where I will be their correspondent again this year, which will be really cool. Very busy couple weeks coming up. So that all being said, let's get into what's going on here with the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence. They released yet another report today. Another report. This is probably, I think, the 5th or 6th report that these people have released about Russian interference. This one happens to be about 980 pages long. And what happens when you release a report that's 980 pages long? Nobody, besides people like me. Nobody in the American public, the general public, will sit and read it and understand it. And so people have, intrepid Twitter investigators have already jumped on this thing and are going through it already. I started this morning and I went right to the WikiLeaks section, given what we're talking about all this rumor of a pardon of Assange and why it's important, etc. And I'm bringing it to you here. So while they conclude that the Trump campaign didn't have anything to do with any of the Russian involvement and blah, 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 they still have all of this nonsense in there about how many touches has the campaign had with people connected to Russia, and they make up the connections to Russia. For example, they really focus in on Paul Manafort being a counterintelligence threat, right? They really focus on him being some massive counterintelligence threat because he's working with someone named Konstantin Kilmenik. Konstantin Kilmenik, I'm saying his name wrong and people correct me all the time. He is a Russian guy. Oh my God. No Russians. Don't talk to Russians. Don't talk to Russians. It's evil. He's a Russian guy. And they go through this in the Mueller report that Paul Manafort, President Trump's former campaign manager, was handing over internal polling to Konstantin Kilmenik. Put on the spooky music. Make sure the spooky music is on for these Russians. He's handing internal polling numbers from the Trump campaign to a Russian. Because that's damaging information, isn't it? Of national importance. Seriously? People, come on now. I've had this theory in my head for so long now, and I there's been nothing that I can pounce on. Republicans pounce, right? Conservatives pounce. There's been nothing that I can pounce on yet. However, what they neglect to mention basically throughout, or mention in passing as though it doesn't even matter at all, is that Mr. Konstantin himself, was an asset for the State Department. So on the same night that Manafort is meeting with Konstantin is going back to meet with the State Department. Why would Paul Manafort, who's been entrenched in the lobbying game at the very least, entrenched in Ukraine issues, entrenched in all of this stuff, was a Trump campaign, was there brought in to help Trump with the delegate strategy on the campaign, why would he be taking internal polling numbers from the Trump campaign and handing them to a man who's connected to the State Department on an asset level, in a way? Sort of it as an asset. An undercover sort of an asset for the State Department, filtering information. Why would Paul Manafort, who's been around the block, be handing that information to Konstantin Kilmenik. You know, people can I can never get it right. Why would he be doing that? Why would the Russians, in quotes, care about President Trump's internal polling numbers? Really? The Clinton campaign might care about them. Just my opinion. Something's there. So somebody asked me on Twitter today, why did they completely skip over the fact that Konstantin was working for the State Department? Jonathan Weiner is interviewed at length by the Senate. I think they should release the transcripts of these interviews instead of referencing them in footnotes. That's what I think. But here we go. Another thing in here that I just found this morning. I went right to the WikiLeaks stuff. And we're going to really, hopefully in the next 20 minutes, I'm going to detail a sordid tale for you of the connections between the vice chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee, Warner, and how he connects to Julian Assange, Christopher Steele, and Oleg Deripaska, an oligarch of Russian origin who was talked to by the FBI in regards to Manafort during the FBI criminal investigation now entitled Crossfire Hurricane. Here it goes. After the election, the Senate Intelligence Committee was starting their own investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 election. And they had Mark Warner was texting via Signal Messenger with a guy named Adam Waldman. Who is Adam Waldman, you may ask? And I've done this a couple of different times. But Adam Waldman is a lawyer lobbyist who represents 3 different, very key, crucial Spygate figures. Oleg Deripaska, Christopher Steele, author of said dossier, and Julian Assange, head of WikiLeaks. And during this time, Waldman is working with Warner and also with the FBI. And Bruce Orr. Yeah, you heard that right. It's weird. So, on behalf of Assange, Waldman, the attorney lobbyist, is talking to the FBI, attempting, in very short order, without getting into very minute detail with you guys, he's trying to get Assange immunity so that he can talk to them about how to better protect the information that they were about to drop on Vault 7, which was all the secrets of the CIA. These were all CIA programs, secret CIA programs, and Julian Assange was attempting to use Adam Waldman to get him leverage, to get him over here so that he could help, explain how to fix problems, redact information. The release was happening either way, but he was working for immunity for a day to come over here and do that. But on one condition, he wanted to tell the FBI and the U.S. government where he actually got the information that he released in regards to the Democrats and John Podesta. Jim Comey, they were all ready to do it. Everybody was on board. It was almost finished. James Comey jumps in and says, nope, this is getting nixed. Everybody is shocked about it. What? All the people working on the deal were shocked about it. Warner was shocked about it because he had heard about it. Waldman was certainly shocked about it. Jim Comey himself stepped in to stop that from happening. Completely stopped it. Why? Why wouldn't he want to know? Interesting. So that was one thing having to do with Assange and Waldman. That very same attorney, Adam Waldman, was also working with Christopher Steele. Now, Mark Warner, the vice chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee that just released the report, the 960-page report today about Russian interference in the 2016 election on a day where just right after Klein-Smith is forced to, his plea agreement is announced or whatever it is, which that's a whole different story we hopefully will have time to get into. That Warner is saying to Waldman, listen, Steele doesn't want to talk to you. Warner wants to talk to Steele off the books. Warner wants to broker a conversation with Christopher Steele that is not documented, that is not on the record, and he wants him to come and talk to them. Christopher Steele, through Adam Waldman, is pushing for everything to be on the record, for there to be a letter and all kinds of stuff. So there's all kinds of shady dealings. I've done a couple of pieces on this. I will update the description box in the stream for YouTube. If you're on the radio, you can go to UncoverDC.com. You can see this stuff there. This is the kind of stuff that they don't want you to hear. This is the kind of stuff that they don't want you to know. They don't want you to know that the vice chair of the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence was brokering some kind of a deal to talk to Christopher Steele off the record using a secure messaging app over the period of months. They don't want you to know that. Marco Rubio stood up and defended him on it. So this is the kind of swamp creatures we're dealing with when we're talking about the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence. Now, we talked last week about a letter that came out from Ron Johnson's committee. That letter talked about how Mitch McConnell took the investigation into this Russian interference from them and gave it to Senate Select Committee on Intelligence. Listen, you guys can think whatever you want about anybody you want. I'm not here to dictate to you who's a good guy, who's a bad guy. Everybody, there are people who have been entrenched in this bureaucracy for decades, and they have literally no desire to let go of their hands on the reins of power. They have zero desire to let go of the reins. And they're swamp rats on both sides. I mean, just look at the Kasichs of the world who were there yesterday at the DNC talking. At the DNC, these are supposedly Republicans at the DNC convention. The world has gone crazy. There's only very few people that you can trust in Congress other than the brand new crop of people that are coming in now because they've just gotten sick and tired of it. It's really amazing what's going on in this country right now. Everybody should be super pumped up about the election. Everyone should be super pumped up about what we're seeing with grassroots political campaigns coming in and destroying establishment candidates. It's so encouraging. But the information here, they really don't want you to, they don't want you to understand this stuff. You will never hear this talked about anywhere on legacy media, on television, unless they book me or John Solomon, because John Solomon is the one who got those SSCI, those messages from Signal. So, look, they're on both sides of the aisle. This is not a battle of right versus left, guys. It really isn't. There are corruptocrat Republicans and there are corruptocrat Democrats. It just so happens that the Republicans at this point in time are not vocally supporting the corrupt Republicans, are not vocally supporting the violence and looting that we see going on in the streets all over America right now. I mean, there was a man beaten within an inch of his life in Portland yesterday. Have you heard anybody but social media talking about that? Probably not. Why don't they want you to know? Why don't they want you to know? That's a good question. So anyway, I got a little off topic there. From the recently released 960-page Senate Intelligence Committee report on 2016, we have gone from them the entire time. The people who are corrupt, the power brokers, the bad guys, the people who've lied to you for years, they have always said definitively that Julian Assange from WikiLeaks worked with the Russians to distribute the information that was found on the DNC server and in the email. They have said that, and he has pushed back against it, and Dana Rohrabacher's been out there with him, and he's pushed back against it. There's been all manner of people. Bill Binney and Vips have done forensic analysis on the files taken from the DNC server and released by that infamous figure, Guccifer 2, who was supposed to be a kind of cutout of the first Guccifer who had hacked Hillary Clinton's emails. It gets very convoluted, but there's forensic evidence that this information was not transferred over the internet, that it could only have been transferred locally. It's in the metadata. It's forensically proven. Don't pay attention to that. Don't pay attention to the former NSA higher up in Bill Binney, who knows all this stuff like the back of his hand. He's just a crazy old right-wing extremist conspiracy theorist, don't you know? Okay? Don't pay any attention to that man. Don't pay any attention to the people who have actually done forensic work. Pay attention to the people who have never even physically seen the server that was supposedly hacked. Those are the people that you should be listening to. The people that wrote this report, the FBI under Jim Comey, the ones who altered evidence to spy on the Trump campaign, those people are telling you the truth. Those people have not even seen the server physically themselves, and they're telling you that everyone who says anything other than the Russians hacked the DNC is a crazy right-wing conspiracy theorist with tinfoil hats on their heads. That's what you need to remember. Very important. Anybody who says anything other than this official story is a tinfoil hat-wearing conspiracy theorist. Sorry, guys. But the real story is stranger than any fiction. And it's definitely not that the Russians hacked the DNC. Because the man behind the company who did supposedly do the forensic investigation, the man who ran CrowdStrike, former FBI intel guy, brought in by the DNC to make sure their monitoring was going well and everything was okay. CrowdStrike admitted before the HIPC under oath that there was no evidence of Russian exfiltration of that information. They have no evidence that Russia took the information from the server. Literally none. But tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy theorist, right-wing extremist crazy person. Woohoo! It's me. Enough is enough with that nonsense. This, they're trying to tell you, well, they're holding up Cardi B as some example of interviewing prowess. I mean, in the Cardi B interview, Biden can't even get his number of grandkids straight. This is what we're dealing with here, and they want you to feel like you're crazy? Give me a break, people. Come on. Open your eyes. Not you. You obviously have your eyes open. You're listening right now. But share this with your friends. It's time. So now, after saying this entire time that Julian Assange was working with the Russians, they come out and say that he very likely knew he was working with the Russians. WikiLeaks, they say, actively sought and played a key role in the Russian campaign and very likely knew it was assisting a Russian intelligence influence effort. Very likely knew. That's almost as bad as using a source that says a person familiar with their thinking. Did you ever see that? A person familiar with his thinking. Sources say, 3 sources, including a person familiar with his thinking, say. Really? That's as bad as... WikiLeaks very likely knew they were corroborating with the Russians. I thought that you guys were really positively sure that WikiLeaks was taking information from the Russians. That was your entire story. The entire time. This is what you've been saying to everybody. And now you're going to, gently drop inside of a 960-page report that you're not even sure? And nobody's supposed to say anything about it. Because talking about it at all makes us a tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy theorist, a right wing or an alt-right conspiracy theorist. Yeah. Even Bernie bros who don't believe the official story are alt-right conspiracy theorists. It is so absurd. This is the most important story of our entire history, and they literally changed it in 2 paragraphs in a 960-page report that is only being covered to say, by the way, the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence knows that the Trump campaign had 1 million overtures with Russian-connected individuals, but they didn't do anything wrong. Do you know how many foreign countries presidential campaigns have been talking to in the past before this nonsense came along? Give me a break. Also, do you know how many people are they don't consider themselves conservatives who still think this whole entire thing is nonsense? So many. They go on to say this. For example, listen guys, this is it. I can't make it bigger for you, but for example, it is also possible that files were transferred to WikiLeaks by individuals who visited Assange in person. Wait. What? Where is the full court press on this? This is so important. Now they're saying that people could have given him the files in person? The entire time they've been talking about how this was Russia that hacked the election and gave them to What is going on right now? And they redact all of that. All of it is redacted. You cannot read a thing about how they possibly could have gotten the files to Julian Assange in person. It is all completely redacted behind big black boxes. Somebody was asking me if I tried yet, because they screw up their redactions all the time. You can literally copy and paste sometimes into another document and get what's behind said redactions because they don't do it correctly, but not all the time. And I haven't tried it yet on this one. This is literally 960 pages that I have to go through and read for everybody, which I'm glad to do, because there's going to be a lot in there that they just don't expect people to find. And there are people with encyclopedias for brains that have been doing this for a very long time that are already digging into this stuff, myself not included. I haven't had time to really dig into it today. But I gave the link. If you want to follow me on Twitter at Tracy Beanz, you can follow me on Twitter. You could also follow UncoverDC at UncoverDC. You can find us on Facebook too. UncoverDC is on Facebook as well. But I shared it for you guys. If you would like to take a look at it yourselves, you'll probably zone out after about 15 minutes. It is written worse than watching paint dry. It worse than waiting for a pot of water to boil. It is worse. And we've basically been thrown this thing in the midst of, oh goodness, the DNC. And I wanted to get into today some of the Kleinsmith stuff with everybody on the show, but we'll do it. We'll do it on the podcast probably tomorrow. There's a lot of people asking some questions about how weird this Kleinsmith thing is and what's going on here. Some people are curious. Why is he sitting in front of Boasberg, who is the FISA judge? Anyway, I'm going to have to wrap it up now. We've got a few minutes left, but I just wanted to let you guys know. Everybody don't tune out yet. Stay here. Do not leave. This is important stuff. Go to uncoverdc.com, please. Check out the journalism tab here. You can find an article that I posted yesterday called Crossfire Hurricane Was Never a Counterintelligence Investigation. This was written by Jim Casey, former FBI agent. Here, I'm going to read his bio to you so you guys understand this is super important. James M. Casey was a police officer and FBI agent for 32 years, assigned to the NSC in 2003 and 4, section chief in the FBI's counterintelligence division for 3 years. He was the special agent in charge of the FBI's Jacksonville division and is now a private investigative and crisis management firm president. Make sure you check that article out. Super good. Support us there by clicking on the support tab. Follow us on social media. Make sure you go to WSMN 1590 AM and 95.3 FM if you're driving around in the listening area. Thank you guys for listening to Tracy Beanz on the radio today. And, I hope that this show is turning out to be good for you guys. I hope that you like a more in-depth listen to some of the stuff that's going on in the world. I hope that it's beneficial and you're not clawing your eyes out by the end, bored out of your mind. I'm not bored. This is so important. Somebody needs to be doing it. So I'm honored to have a platform to be able to do it for you guys. We couldn't write this if we wanted to. If you wanted to write out a script, you couldn't write it. Nobody would buy it. I'm telling you, it's too outrageous. Remember, next week we will have Ned Ryan, Lee Smith. Tomorrow we will have Facebook whistleblower Ryan Hartwig on the podcast. And then Thursday on the show, Ikim Alptekin of the Flynn Intel Group Farah case. Thursday. That'll be a crazy interview. I've spent a lot of time on that case and it's been really confusing, but to hear it from him, that'll be super awesome. Hope that you guys enjoyed the show today. Again, we are streaming live on Clout Hub. We're streaming live on Periscope, Twitter, which is Periscope, YouTube, Facebook, DLive. Make sure to check us out. Make sure to come back here on Thursday at 1 o'clock Eastern Time. You guys are amazing. Fantastic. Love your support and love you all. Thank you for letting me do this. It's what I love, and I appreciate you guys. Until next time. 5, 4. I need a timer. 30 seconds is never the same amount of time. Have a good one, guys.